In my 20s, I endured a tumultuous breakup that felt straight out of a dramatic movie. My girlfriend and I ended things with a heated argument, culminating in her storming off, and I thought that was the last I'd see of her. For a week, there was silence, and I was content, hoping for a return to normalcy. One weekend, following an evening out with friends, I found myself alone at home, unwinding with a few drinks. My living room setup allowed me a clear view of the outside through a window next to the TV, a habit born out of a mix of paranoia and caution. That night, something unusual caught my eye. A large, intimidating man, overdressed for the weather, walked past my house, glancing briefly in my direction before moving on. Although I initially brushed off the encounter, a later incident made me reconsider its significance. In the kitchen for another drink, I turned off the lights and, on a whim, looked out into the backyard through the sliding glass door. To my shock, a shadowy figure loomed in the darkness. Approaching the window for a closer look, I realized it was a large man, reminiscent of the one I had seen earlier. Panic set in as he started moving towards my door. Rushing to lock it just in time, I caught a glimpse of him, a massive figure clad in a black jacket, with a large knife visible inside. He began violently tugging at the door handle, threatening to break in. In a state of terror, I armed myself with a gun from my living room closet. Moments later, the intruder broke through the door, knife in hand. Confronted with my firearm, he hesitated, perhaps not expecting resistance. Despite my fear and uncertainty, I found myself firing a shot, hitting him in the arm. Wounded and in pain, he fled through the back door. Frozen in shock, it took me a while to gather myself to call the police. The man was later apprehended lurking behind a convenience store and identified by me in a police lineup. The reason for mentioning my ex-girlfriend initially was her acquaintance with the attacker, leading me to suspect her possible involvement. Though never proven or arrested, the connection lingered in my mind, adding a layer of betrayal to an already harrowing ordeal. I've always been passionate about fitness, regularly working out and trained in wrestling and martial arts. While I'm not fond of fighting, I'm confident in my ability to defend myself, a detail that adds a chilling layer to my story. It was a crisp fall evening, and I was out for a jog, timing it to catch the beautiful autumn sunset. My route took me through a park with a path winding through a forest, leading to a large field with a children's playground. As I paused near the playground to admire the sunset, I noticed a young child playing alone, which struck me as odd given the lateness of the hour. My attention then shifted to a peculiar man standing near the playground. He appeared out of place, leaning casually against the swing set, and his presence made me uneasy. I observed as the man approached the child. Their interaction seemed off, the child recoiled slightly, and the man's demeanor seemed intimidating. Sensing something amiss, I decided to approach them. Suddenly, the situation escalated. The man grabbed the child's arm, and the child's attempts to break free were in vain. The child's screams confirmed my worst fears. This was either an abusive situation or an abduction attempt. I sprinted towards them, prepared to intervene. Confronting the man, I forcefully separated him from the child. He was a disheveled, thin, and unkempt figure with wild, crazed eyes. Despite his smaller stature, he attacked me with unexpected strength. We grappled intensely, his shouts about needing blood adding to the surreal and terrifying encounter. Eventually, I managed to subdue him, pinning him down and instructing the child to call the police. The police arrived promptly and took the man into custody. The child's account to the police was even more harrowing. The man had approached him for a game, spouting delusions about needing the child's blood to silence the scary things he claimed to see. It turned out the man was under the influence of PCP and suffered from schizophrenia, which explained his surprising strength and erratic behavior. Thankfully, the child was unharmed and remarkably composed given the ordeal. Reflecting on the incident later, the thought of what could have happened if I hadn't intervened sent shivers down my spine. The child's safety was paramount, and I was relieved that I could play a part in ensuring it. In the midst of the Great Recession, I found myself grappling with unemployment, having lost my job as a facilitator in a call center, where I was responsible for training new recruits. The company's decision to replace full-time facilitators like myself with less expensive, seasonal trainers left me stranded financially. With a family to support and severance pay rapidly diminishing, the job hunt was proving fruitless and despairing. One day, in a grocery store parking lot, an acquaintance of mine approached me. Our interactions had always been somewhat uncomfortable due to her penchant for long, unsolicited conversations, and her involvement in questionable activities, including occasional drug dealing. Despite my reservations about her character, I found myself divulging my joblessness and financial worries to her. She offered to help, presenting me with a phone number for a potential job opportunity. I was skeptical, especially given her shady background, but desperation led me to make the call. To my surprise, the company, whose name I didn't recognize, quickly arranged an interview for the next day. The location of the interview, however, was unsettling. It was situated in a run-down industrial area, with no signs of activity or other vehicles. The building itself looked desolate, adding to my unease. Despite this, I ventured inside, hoping for the best. The interior of the building was even more disconcerting. The reception was unstaffed, the lights were off, and the entire place seemed abandoned. As I approached the elevator, which was inoperable, an eerie chanting emanated from the staircase leading to the basement. The words, "It's for you, Lord. Come to me, Lord," repeated in a terrifying tone, sent chills down my spine. In a state of shock and fear, I decided to leave immediately. As I rushed out, I noticed a group of people in ceremonial robes standing outside, their eyes fixed on me as I fled the scene. I attempted to contact the acquaintance who had recommended this place, but she never responded. To this day, I remain haunted by the incident, the chilling chants, and the unexplained gathering in that desolate building.